Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off this week's episode, just a quick ask. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss an episode, never miss out on any of the strategies and tactics that we're sharing to help you continue charting your own path to freedom. And if you'd like to go deeper with any of this, we've launched a free Facebook group, which you can join at pathtofreedom.com/group. And we've linked that in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. All right. Thank you again for being here. Let's drop in to the episode. Hey, what's up, everyone? And welcome to the Path to Freedom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Gavin Lancey. Gavin oversees franchise sales and success for Daisy, which is an emerging brand in the smart home space, something I've been interested in for a while now, and was really excited when I got introduced to Gavin through a mutual friend. And I'm personally very excited to dig in and learn a little bit more about Daisy and what they're doing in the smart home space. So with that, Gavin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to be here, Wes. Excited to chop it up with you.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. So we were just kind of chatting before we hit record. It's kind of a small world because I started just kind of personally doing some research into this smart home space a few years ago because I saw a need for it in our local market. We own a franchise business, and a lot of our kind of customer base in that business would be, I think, the prime target market for a business that specializes in smart home design and implementation. And I actually came across your company and now Daisy, the company that you've merged with, in some of that research. And then fast forward a few years, get introduced to you by a mutual acquaintance. And here we are recording the podcast. So kind of funny how these things play out. But for the listeners, give us kind of a quick overview. Obviously you guys are in the smart home business, but what does that entail? What do you guys specialize in exactly?
Yeah, I mean, the word smart home and home technology is continuing to build and grow and become just a basic household need. And so, we install and service home automation systems. That includes audio video systems, lighting control and smart lighting design, automated blinds and shades for window treatments, security and surveillance systems, supporting Wi-Fi networks, and really kind of anything home house technology, both in residential and commercial applications. Okay. We install and then service over the long haul.
Yeah, so there's kind of a recurring piece to this as well with ongoing service. And I mean, I imagine in a lot of cases you come in and you help someone get their smart home set up. But I mean, at the pace things are moving, I mean, there's very few aspects of your home that don't have the capabilities of being smart enhanced. And that's only going to continue, right? So, I imagine there's a lot of opportunity for you guys to kind of keep coming back in with your customers and adding additional, smart technology to the home, which to me is something really intriguing about this. And we're going to dive into, more of the nuts and bolts of how you guys do what you do. But how did you get into this business in the first place? We'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah. So my dad started an integration company called Savvy Home in 2004 here in Boulder, Colorado. That's where I'm from, born and raised. That same year I was going to college. I started a house painting company that we grew and scaled and modeled on a franchise model, and helped that build a team to about 22 states, doing $40 million annually, and was
Wow.
lucky to sell that business in 2013, but learned a lot around just the power of shared resources, to help, entrepreneurs kind of grow territory and grow quickly. So it's kind of my first runaround through, through franchising. And so, yeah, that's at the same
Hell
time.
of a first run.
Yeah, it went well. There are a lot of learnings, right? There's a lot of
Sure.
failures through
I'm
that too.
sure. I'm sure.
Late nights, early mornings, and just grinding it, out
Yeah.
and knocking doors to find clients.
Yeah.
Just whatever it takes, man. I think that mentality is just kind
The
of.
painting business is a grind. Like there's a lot of successful painting businesses out there. Painting as an industry has done very well in franchising. It's got a good track record, but it's one of those businesses, man, you got to just be boots on the ground, knocking doors. There's a lot of opportunity there, but it's not one of these businesses where you just turn some marketing on and wait for the leads to flood in and build the business that way.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so my dad was growing Savvy Home just as a hi-fi 2-channel audio business back then, just kind of as
Okay.
the
Yeah.
Internet of Things was sort of becoming a thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
we'd always stay in touch, and just, we're talking about potentially franchising the model one day, but it was just sort of speculation. We focused
Right.
on growing a client base, building systems, building processes, and adding a lot of the verticals that I just mentioned, right? As smart home solutions have evolved, as technologies evolved to
Yep.
become just more mainstream. You think about, the doctor's visits we all do online, kids doing
Mhm.
homework, connected to the internet, all of our, yes, appliances and systems, and how we entertain and how we feel safe, and just how we interact and use our homes is done through technology, or can be. And
Yeah.
so, our approach with what was called Savvy Home. So we built that kind of out, and started franchising last year. And then, yes, we got acquired by Daisy, and we can kind of go into that, how we've
Mhm.
merged, really a great support team experience in the franchise world, to help deliver great franchise experiences, in the smart home market, which gives customers great experiences because they have that, boots on the ground approach
Yeah.
wrapped around a big company backing. So,
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's the perfect type of business that would really thrive in a franchise model. Some businesses, franchising, it just doesn't make sense because that local ownership component is not quite as important to the success of the business. But, any of these kind of home service, home improvement type businesses where, you're going in to a customer's home, providing a service, and especially if there's some ongoing need for service or additional products, having local ownership is so important as compared to a company just scaling through going in and hiring salespeople in a market or putting some managers in a market. And to me, I really like this because, and you would know better than I would, but as you've said, this is becoming more and more mainstream with the smart home technology. I mean, this is not like a new concept at this point, and there's so many options. But in terms of competition, from what I can tell at a national level, this industry is very, very fragmented, and there's not like an established dominant national player. It
mhm.
looks like you guys are kind of in that lead spot and really well positioned to kind of keep moving towards that market dominance. But there's just tons of blue sky in this industry from what I can see.
Yeah, no, I think that's, we understand that, and we're focused delivering these great experiences for customers, right, and doing
Yeah.
that at scale, right, and I think for the franchise model helps us, achieve that kind of
Yeah.
over and over. And so, yeah, it's an exciting times, to really be that premier franchise offering in the smart home category.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I work with hundreds of different franchise companies, and, I work with some brands that I would say kind of dabble in this, smart home, work with some window coverings franchises, right? So you mentioned earlier, smart blinds and smart shades. So like, obviously they're offering some of that. I work with some great lighting concepts. So they're involved to some extent with smart lighting and whatnot, but I haven't seen anyone else that's just specifically focusing on smart home design and implementation. So
Yeah.
like I said, to me this is a really intriguing business. So you mentioned the merger, and that's fairly recent, as I understand it, with Savvy Home, which was the company you and your dad started and had begun franchising it, and then essentially got acquired or merged with Daisy. So tell me a little bit more about how that transpired and why that made sense and why that's beneficial going forward to someone that may be considering becoming a franchise owner with Daisy.
Yeah, well, the leadership team on Daisy, our two co-founders, Hagen Kapler and Dion Person, who came from Service Master, Terminex, Merry Maids worlds of franchising in their leadership groups for a lot of years, built 500 to 1,000 unit systems, involved heavily in the M&A world. They had a real pedigree of franchising and looked at the smart home space and was like, where's the national brand, right? There's a pest control guy, there's a landscaping guy, there's an HVAC reoccurring guy. Why is there no tech guy? We need the tech guy. And so, as you mentioned earlier, there's been a fragmented space, a lot of different integrators doing it a lot of different ways. So they jumped in, last year to basically try to standardize that, right, and scale through franchising. And so, we gotten connected actually through a mutual, friend. They'd heard of Savvy Home, what we were doing on sort of the franchise build out and launch, and we were able to really put a deal together that made a lot of sense at the end of August. But to merge leadership cultures to accomplish the mission, right, which is deliver those solutions at scale through that recurring offering that we call Daisy Care, right? To show up, give free tech home assessments for people who have lived there for 20 years and have never upgraded their technology, right? I mean, you think about how often you upgrade your iPhone, but home technology, it's just these ancient systems, and what's available today from an education standpoint, the ability to integrate these things together to then control your house on one single app, to have one point of control and source of truth, a lot of people don't even know that's an option. And so we go in there able to kind of, offer those assessments and it can lead to a great customer experience, ideally down the road. So, to be able to do that takes a lot of effort, a lot of team, a lot of resources. We've got 34 people on our, franchise support team right now that is dedicated to branch, support. And we can elaborate on that. But I think, the merger made sense just because of, again, we have a shared value, shared vision on what we're trying to do. And it really made sense with us, with our integration background, and then their leadership team on the corporate, side of things to come together and really be able to accomplish it quicker.
If you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode. Yeah, that's a good point. And the people that listen to this podcast regularly, they've heard me say this all the time, because a lot of the brands that I work with and that we feature here on the podcast are emerging brands, right? They haven't been around as a franchise for 10, 15, 20 years and have, all of this track record. And so, naturally people tend to look at something that's more emerging and say, oh, well, that's probably a little more risky because there's not as much of that track record. And to some extent, that may be accurate, but the biggest thing I always try to coach people on is, look at the leadership team, right? And so, because there's so many benefits that come with investing earlier in an emerging brand too. Prime territory still available in markets where it's virtually impossible to find good territory with some of these more mature brands, just opportunity to get in early on something and really, go out and build an empire if that's your goal. So, when I see brands that have leadership teams that have experience in franchising and they have a track record successfully building other franchise organizations, like the team you just told us about with Daisy, right? I mean, Service Master and some of these other brands are, very established brands that have a great track record. Your own experience, with the college painting business and, building that into a franchise across 22 states. And then on top of that, you have the industry expertise as well. Like that's the perfect kind of combination where, I look at this and say, yeah, there's still, going to be some bumps in the road, for the earlier franchisees that come on board. Yeah, probably because, there's still a lot of just figuring things out that have to happen. But in my eyes, this is not nearly as risky as the business that's been around for 15 years and the founders decide to franchise it, but they've never done anything in franchising before. So they've got to go through that whole learning curve. And, the early adopter franchisees are along for the ride with that. So I'm glad that you touched a little bit on that leadership experience, because I think that should be a key takeaway for anyone listening here.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, really at the core of any business, it's people, right? It's people going to work, it's
100%.
people solving problems. It's people combining together with that shared mission, to fail forward and get up and dust off and do it again. And, with what we're trying to do here in the smart home space, and as you already mentioned, bringing those things together, it's a pretty baked concept. I mean, it's been proven out in our locations, and any business growing is going to have bumps. Like that's business ownership, man.
100%. It's a roller coaster.
Got the right mindset to do it, and then have a system, have proven people to support you. I mean, that's pretty compelling.
Yeah. So where is Daisy at today in terms of number of locations that are open and operating?
Yeah, so we have 7 company-owned locations and 7 franchise locations: Connecticut, Florida, Arizona, California, and Colorado, and Virginia. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's another thing I look at, and I like that because you've got a lot of different parts of the country where you guys are operating this business. Sometimes as franchise companies start to grow, they've just kind of grown out from wherever the company originally started, which is fine, but it's really good to see, that you're able to kind of go in and prove the concept works in very different parts of the country, right? Florida, California, Colorado, some of those other places that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the actual application, right? So you mentioned earlier residential and commercial, which makes sense. Is most of the opportunity in this, what I would kind of consider retrofit, I guess, right? You're going into someone's existing home that they're already living in and, either adding to any smart home technology that they have, or, just starting from kind of a blank slate and designing the smart home that they want and then installing everything? Or is there also opportunity for new construction, getting in with home builders so that people can incorporate this in as they're actually building the house? Like what are you guys primarily seeing across your locations right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's both of those things. So really it's about 50-50 split on
Nice.
existing retrofit and then new home construction design. We do really angle towards, a bit more of a luxury experience, right?
Yeah, sure.
A luxury customer.
Sure.
And so a lot of, our larger projects, of course, are coming in at the design table with the architect, the builder, the interior designer, and really being that execution component and quarterback of the technology system, right? As I mentioned, it's how the customer interacts with their home, right?
Yeah.
So it's so critical, and customers demand it. They want that, right? So we're able to provide that expertise at the design stage, then all the way through framing, right? Through trim out, and then of course install, provisioning the systems and supporting them for the life of that customer, right? So we're a subcontractor in that regard for a lot of the trades, but it's a unique subcontract experience. It's not painting where you're in and out. It's a very design focused and long-term relationship, that we have. So we build those pipelines on the new construction side and remodel, similar. And then of course we work with existing homes. People need maybe a TV hung above a fireplace or a new network, or they moved in and need window treatments, and tied into the HVAC, component with home control. And we do those too, right? So it's two parallel tracks with kind of how we reach our customers.
Yeah. The design piece of that makes a ton of sense to me because no two people are necessarily going to want their smart home set up exactly the same way. So, I imagine there's a lot of customization that comes into it, based on, what's important to the client, how they want to be able to use these different smart home components. We just built a custom home and moved in July. And so we were able to do that. Our builder, who was fantastic, had a guy that, again, he's kind of one of these that I would say dabbles in the smart home stuff, but that's not, he's not doing it to the extent that you guys are. I think he started out as like a audio and visual, company back in the late 90s. And so, we were able to get some security cameras and like some Sonos speakers and some of that, as we were going through that process. But, he wasn't offering full smart home design and implementation. Any of that other stuff that we wanted to incorporate, we had to just kind of figure it out ourselves. And, that would have been really nice if there was a company like Daisy in our area that we could have sat down with, at the right point in the build process and said, all right, here's everything that we want from a smart home standpoint, and let's go ahead and just lay it all out now. And that way it's just getting incorporated into that entire build process. And like, I know what we spent on the security cameras and the Sonos speakers and just some of that basic stuff, and it was not cheap, so if people are able to get this started early enough in the process and roll it into a mortgage versus paying out of pocket for it, I imagine that makes a big difference too.
Yeah, it does. And again, the tailwinds of the demand that's out there, right, for these type of systems, and just having someone that has that type of expertise to deliver, right, I think is everything. And there's a lot of great integrators doing a lot of great system design and doing good work out there, right? But it's the Wild West. Like why we don't need 70 video doorbells. Like who needs that? That's too many video doorbells, right? And so the manufacturer side, I think there's some confusion for a lot of customers when they want technology, they want it to work, but they don't want to deal with it themselves. They don't want to install their cameras and their doorbells. That's where they come in, right?
And then getting it all synced up, like you alluded to this earlier, but I think you're right. Most people don't even know you can do this, but there are ways that you can tie all of this together and essentially control every aspect of your smart home through one app. So that kind of leads into the next piece I wanted to talk to you about. So as you just mentioned, there's a lot of different companies out there, manufacturing different smart home products, right? You've got, Nest, you've got Amazon, you've got Ring Doorbell. The list just goes on and on. So I assume you guys are you guys actually selling the smart home products to your clients plus installing it? So are you guys essentially set up somehow as dealers with these different manufacturers of smart home products? And then so it's completely turnkey for the client. They don't have to buy the product themselves, and then you guys are just coming in to install it. You're handling it A to Z.
That's right. Yeah. So we've been working for years on building these, scaled manufacturer relationships that we give to every franchisee that's going to be able to buy it, an aggressive pricing, to then sell back to the customer at retail pricing. So, that's a component of just standardizing the sandbox of product lines, to then deploy, for the customer. So we own that part of it, as well as the install, programming, and support.
So take the video doorbell example. Do you guys have, you don't have to use specific brand names if you don't want to, but do you guys have just one video doorbell that you use, so that you're essentially recommending that to your client, or are you able to accommodate, like, if the client really wants a Ring doorbell versus I think Blink is another one that's out there. Or are you just really trying to kind of standardize, the specific products that you work with?
Yeah, so again, our manufacturer partners are great. They've come to the table to help deploy their products, right?
Yeah,
At
sure.
scale. So they're excited about that. So think of it like kind of a commercial kitchen. We've got ingredients all on the shelves that we can kind of pull from when needed. If a customer is super passionate about something, there's a good chance within our buying network, we can go get that product, right? But we
Yeah,
certainly lead with the solution first. It's not really about the product, whether it's this
right.
brand or that brand. It's about a working video doorbell that syncs with your phone to get what content you need, right? An
Sure.
easy to
Yeah,
control audio system that works every time, right?
yeah,
Easy to turn on the TV when you want to turn on the TV, that the network just is backbone. So again, we don't really pitch product per se. We found a lot of great ones that work, and it's all about the best solution for the customer.
yeah. Well, and the point that you hit on with, being able to reduce the cost of these products for your franchisees. I mean,
Mhm.
I sometimes hear from people, when they're looking at franchise, some of these more service-based franchises where, the brand name may not be as recognizable as, McDonald's or Orange Theory or something like that. And they kind of question, where's the value in this? And so, obviously the systems, the processes, the training, having a playbook to follow from day one,
Mhm.
the support, the peer group of other franchisees that you can learn from. But in these types of businesses, the buying power is always going to be one of the biggest value adds to franchisees. And one thing I see out there sometimes with franchise companies is, they do a really good job on the front end of initial training and support and helping people get their business open quicker and avoid some mistakes in the beginning. But then, once a franchisee is in business for 3, 4, 5 years and they know what they're doing, some of these franchises don't do a great job of continuing to provide good ongoing value, but the franchisees are still paying fees. Like, I love a business like this where there is a product component, because as the system grows and gets bigger, you're going to be able to continue delivering more and more buying power to your franchisees. And that's value that never goes away. It actually probably increases over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sorry, it might have broke up just there a little bit, but I can certainly elaborate on some of the support, systems if that kind of helps.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd be great.
yeah, just to kind of clear that up, because I'm with you. I mean, to be able to deliver great experience for the customer, right? It takes, people who are coming in, whether it's new owners or existing owners that are converting, to our locations, having that support team and that support structure is really everything, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's a lot what the Daisy Group and the Daisy executives kind of bring to the table, knowing like at scale, it requires a village, right? As it takes.
Yeah.
So, so we really focus on delivering, and all this is delivered through a like enterprise grade Microsoft Dynamics tech stack that we've built sort of front to end,
Nice.
to be the source of truth. And one piece of software that does it all, that doesn't just existed in our industry and, is fragmented. So with just the advent of AI and being a technology company to deliver technology is really important to us, so we started there and invested a ton of energy and money into, that build out. But that allows us to provide like a 24/7 call center that's manned by our, technicians to handle the customer issues as well as program and technician issues that may come up, right? Or help provision camera systems for technicians that they can call in and get access to that. So we provide those that call center resources, right? And we can phone screen leads and drop those into the calendar for our franchisees for sales as well, right? So that's all handled on the phone basis. The product relationships we already talked about, financing and bookkeeping services and support, highlighting bottom line is a focus, and how to make more money in your business versus just spend it all over the place. Remember, we've stepped in the potholes, so we don't want you to, right?
Exactly.
So a lot of the finance and that idea. We focus a lot of the technician and training support, for how to install a speaker into the ceiling and how to actually put a security camera on the wall and angle it the right way, right? So we've built those playbooks. We have, a full online LMS that's been, licensed from our manufacturer content to our CEDIA content to our custom built curated content, to have that single sign-on ability for people to take the trainings and go through and reference, that material and be able to scour that database, with the use of Copilot and AI to find exactly what they're looking for, right? So there's a real approach to how do we deliver the training, again, at scale for all locations. We also provide HR and recruiting services. So we've got people on our team that help post jobs, phone screen leads, do first round interviews, and cater to those first key hires for our franchise locations.
So critical.
And support is a huge piece of what we do. Obviously, the daisy care and the ongoing RMR that we put that package together and how that can pencil and work out. And then, of course, the business training, sales support and growth, and obviously exit, right? I mean, a business is an asset that you build, and it doesn't have a forever life. What happens when you want to get off the off ramp, right? And so our team being super tenured within doing deals, transactions in this space, help build that value in the asset, right, over time. And franchise businesses, again, typically trade a lot higher than the usual mom and pop, right?
Yeah, they do.
That's the idea of investing in something now to ideally get a return later on. So all that, again, is only delivered through the people on the team, right? And we've got humans behind all the different verticals. As I mentioned, 34 people on our franchise support team. That's a lot for
14 locations with only 7 of them being franchise locations. I mean, those are really strong ratios. And so, to me, all of this perfectly highlights what we touched on earlier, where, you've got everyone on the leadership team has some experience in other big established franchise organizations, right? So you don't proactively build out all of this support, bring in all of these people, when you're this early in the game in terms of number of franchisees, unless you've already been there and done it, and you can look around the corner and say, okay, we know what this needs to look like in order for us to effectively support 100 franchisees or 200 franchisees. That's probably one of the biggest reasons some emerging franchise companies get out over their skis, is because they are not proactive enough in bringing on more support. And, the support systems that they have in place are not put in place early enough. Like the call center is a good example of this. I see so many brands that, they get to 20, 30, 40 franchisees, and then they're like, man, we really need a call center. That's a lot harder to go back and implement once you're already that big. If you've got it from the very beginning or so early on, then, you can, grow alongside of that. So sounds like you guys are really providing true comprehensive support in that. So you mentioned HR and recruiting. This is something I always like to ask about, because, all the people I work with to help evaluate different franchises, usually one of the biggest questions or concerns they have is, the recruiting piece. How am I going to find and keep the right types of people? So what does the team need to look like in order for a franchise owner to launch this business? How many people do they need? What types of background or experience do these people need? Do they need any sort of specialized training or certifications? Like, what does that piece look like?
It starts with the franchisee and what they're good at. I'm a big believer in, focus on your strengths, do what your superpower is, and you're just happier in your job. So if you're a big time salesperson, go do sales, and let's hire an operator, or maybe you don't like the sales approach, this being that relationship game. Well, then hire a business development manager that's going to go out. So there's a little nuance on who the human is first, right?
Of course. Yeah.
A technician or project manager to start, salespeople, a salesperson to start. Can that team of 3, maybe 4, if it's 2 technicians to drive 1 van, can definitely support a good chunk of business for year 1. And as you add a second vehicle, a second van, probably add 1 or 2 more technicians, and kind of grow from there, right? So we've got the playbook built out for all of them, and provide training again and for all of those roles, right, to kind of get spun up on the brand and what they need to do to actually deliver.
Yeah. So 3 to 4 people, and depending on how the franchisee sees themselves best fitting in, if they're strong on the sales side, then you may not need to hire a salesperson right out of the gate, because you as the franchisee can really focus on that, at least in the beginning. What other infrastructure is needed to get this business up and running? You mentioned a van. Do you need any sort of a warehouse or office space, or can this be started as more of a home-based business? What else is needed in order to be operational?
Yeah, our investment range again is about 135 to 300K. So,
Okay.
it's in that lower range. We don't require
Yeah.
a showroom build out. Like, we run our business in Denver on 2 storage units in downtown, so,
Really?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really home based. The investment in the van to kind of get rolling, and tools, inventory, equipment, and stuff like that to kind of is going to be the biggest, cost and infrastructure,
Yeah.
things, and then the cost on marketing where you really pushing and
Of
get
course.
name out there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really not like inventory build out, office space, definitely not like restaurant component
Yeah. Yeah.
level of investment or build out required or needed.
Well, it's got all the components of the types of businesses I love, and the franchises we've owned are very similar. You've got, lower upfront startup cost, pretty lean, low overhead. You don't need a huge team. It sounds like the team, whether it be the technicians or the salespeople, this is not like completely unskilled labor,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you've got people that are, probably somewhat career minded, right? And want to plug in with a company where they see a future and they see themselves being able to grow within the company. We've owned a business before where, it heavily relied on very unskilled labor, and, most of those employees, they weren't thinking past next Friday when they got paid. And there's a lot of headaches that come with that type of a business. So that's something I've learned to really, really appreciate in a business model, is something that needs somewhat skilled, employees, because I think while, there may not be as large of a pool, to look at, when you find the right people, there's a much higher likelihood that they're going to really do a good job for you and stick with you for the long term. Something else I always look at, I do a lot of coaching around this. Talk to me a little bit about what the cash flow model looks like in this business. I imagine, just based on personal experience, just finishing building a house, looking at incorporating really only a portion of what we could have from in terms of smart home. These are pretty large projects that you're doing, for at least have the potential to become very large projects for your customers. So are your franchisees ordering any product ahead of time and holding inventory? Is everything being ordered just on an as needed basis? Are clients giving you a deposit? Like, what does that typically look like?
Yeah, we don't have a big inventory, overhead.
Good.
It's very contract design focused first. Get
Good.
a contract, get a 50% deposit, which is pretty standard in the industry.
Yeah.
And from there, we purchase and procure the gear we need,
Yeah.
So it's very, very one off. And then again, those projects can take a while. So we have kind of a progress payment, sort of program, and depending on the size and,
Sure.
that makes sense for the client and the customer. So yeah, it doesn't, we're not sitting, it's not making donuts at 3 a.m. It's not an events, style weekends. It's very 8 to 5 kind of follow the building, community,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's what it takes.
Yeah. And so is there much of a difference in terms of your cash flow cycle if you're working with, kind of like an existing homeowner versus doing new construction? We've owned a business where we were largely, a subcontractor for builders. And, one of our biggest challenges in that business was cash flow management, because we learned the hard way. Most builders are going to give you net 30 terms, and that in reality usually means you may get paid somewhere between 60 and 90 days. So what does that look like on the new construction side of this for you guys?
Sure. Yeah. Well, again, we're not buying and really incurring much cost until we buy product, right? And
Yeah.
that's only
Yeah.
going to be done once we get a deposit. So that stuff isn't super, concerning. I think our yes, some contractors work on the draws, system of putting an invoice in on the 25th and get paid by the 10th or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Like, and there is a lot of differences with how different contractors run their business, right?
Yeah.
So we have flexibility kind of, in that, but it isn't a huge, concern. This is a pretty positive cash flow setup, for our locations.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it. It sounds like it's a really good cash flowing model. It's, again, got that kind of bigger ticket potential,
Mhm.
so this to me is the type of business that has the potential to ramp up very quickly.
Mhm.
If you can as a brand new franchisee, get some sales opportunities on the calendar, go out and convert some of those opportunities into sales. I mean, this strikes me as the type of business where you can start putting up some pretty significant revenue numbers within your first couple of months. And then just like you walked us through the cash flow cycle, you know, it's a business that cash flows really well. So, because that's important to a lot of people, right? They, depending on their situation, you know, how quickly they could reasonably expect the business to start at least breaking even, but ideally actually generating some income for themselves is a critical factor in all of this.
For sure. Yeah. And again, you know, nothing's guaranteed, of course. Like,
No.
You got to grind it, and that mentality to, you know, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out. And, you know, we feel we've developed a system, developed, you know, procedures, and have the team to support that growth, you know. So yeah, the more inputs you get, the more output you can expect, you know.
Yeah.
And
And it's, you know, nothing's guaranteed. And, you know, this is something I find sometimes people have a little difficulty wrapping their head around as they're evaluating different franchises. Cause, you know, as you're going through the research, you're able to, you know, in most cases, see some data around financial performance of the other franchisees. If there are corporate owned locations, a lot of times you get to see some of that data, but then you get to talk to different franchise owners and really learn from their experience. But sometimes people still almost want you to, like, you know, tell them, hey, this is what's going to happen in your first 3 months if you do this. And it's like, so much of it depends on you as the franchise owner, and not only what you put into it, but just, you know, how well you can capitalize. Like if you're really, really competent in sales, you know, that's going to increase the likelihood that you come out of the gates pretty quick, because, you know, you could have all the qualified sales appointments that you could ever need on the calendar in your first month. But if you can't convert any of those into business, you're getting off to a slower start than the person that had half that number of appointments, but converted more up.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors that go into this, and a lot of variables. And at the end of the day, most of those variables revolve around the franchise owner and how well they execute, and how well they can take all the training and support that's given to them and implement it in their local market.
That's right. Yeah. And that's why, again, for us, it's a partnership at core.
Yeah.
It's people coming together, you know, with that shared vision, you know, to really standardize this industry, be able to deliver these great solutions for clients. And can we do it together? Can we go to battle every day, get up and be on the journey together? I just find it's a lot easier to do it with people who've been there before than reinventing the wheel yourself. And
so much easier.
I've been through that many times as an entrepreneur. And again, it's, you know, it takes a mindset for sure.
Yeah, it does. It can be a roller coaster for sure. So on that note, what are you guys really looking for in your franchise owners? And, you know, out of the base of franchise owners that you have today, are people coming in with some prior industry experience, or, you know, are you bringing in people that are kind of corporate refugees that are looking to build something and translate that skill set? What do you have today, and what do you know that you're really looking for in a franchise owner?
Yeah. So for clarity, we've got sort of two franchise paths. One on the conversion side. So that's going to be existing small integrators who maybe want to take advantage of our shared resources, strip out some of their costs and pour into the Daisy model, you know, to just be more effective and grow quicker. So that's the conversion route that we've got, you know, a lot of previous business owner experience that is in there. And then we've got the new, corporate refugee, if you want to call them that, you know, someone who wants to just quit working for the man and, you know, be in charge of their time. The commonality is everybody's got some passion around technology, you know, interested in it. You know, I think too many times we lean away from that in franchise models. This is, you know, look, we're playing with the coolest toys. Like, this is super cool, sexy stuff that we can be a part of. And so, like, if there's interest in technology, this might be a cool business to be in, you know, on the day-to-day. So I think that's what we see as our current locations. And it really goes to those two things, you know, that we need: a mindset to grow, a mindset for results, a mindset for just kicking butt, taking names and falling down and getting up again with a smile on your face? Can they fit that culture?
Yeah.
And then secondly, like, are you willing to follow the playbook? Can you follow the system we've put in place? Because I'll tell you, we put a ton of energy into it, and it's not perfect, but it's really good, and it's proven to work, and we've seen a lot of growth within our locations because of it. And so it's like, don't reinvent the thing. You just execute. And if you're willing to do those two things, like, we think we can form a good partnership.
Yeah, makes sense. But it sounds like it's not necessary for someone to come in and be a smart home expert or guru and already have a bunch of knowledge and understanding of the technical side of how all of this works. The passion piece makes sense, but they don't need to necessarily already have a good understanding of all of this. You're getting some of that with these conversions that you're doing, but it's not necessary.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people, like, we got people who've been in like the corporate sales job, for a lot of years, no experience in technology, don't even have it at their own house, but interested in the space. And that's what our training programs provide for, is to teach the technical aspect, to get spun up on that. Look, it's not rocket science. Yes, it's a bit more complex than house painting was, but you sit down, you do the work, you learn the things in a controlled, standardized environment. Like, you can do that. You can learn that stuff, right? And learning is always ongoing, but yeah, we provide all that coaching.
You learn as you go. The more jobs you do, because I imagine in this type of business, no two jobs are exactly the same. So, the more you have under your belt, the more you learn, the more experience your team gets. And, I think that should be a big takeaway for anyone listening is, whether it's a smart home franchise or even a painting franchise, you're never gonna get to that point. If this is your first foray into business ownership, you're never going to get to that point where you probably feel like you know enough to get started. There's always going to be that kind of leap of faith that you have to take and say, all right, I trust that I'm partnering with the right people. I trust that I have the right mindset and the right motivations to put in the work and figure it out. And I know that I don't know all of this today, but I know that as I get started, I'll learn a little bit, and then I'll learn a little bit more, and then I'll keep learning a little bit more. And, it probably won't take nearly as long as some people expect before all of a sudden you are pretty much an expert. And there's still going to be plenty to keep learning. That never ends. But, especially within, a good franchise that's structured the right way with the right training and the right support, I think the learning curve in a lot of cases is not as steep as many people imagine that it is.
For sure, for sure. Again, with the willingness to do the learning, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it can certainly be done.
So a mentor of mine actually was a college pro franchisee when he was in college. And Boris knows him really well. Dave Pasgan. So he was the CEO of the first franchisor that I worked for. And he used to give this analogy at Discovery Day where he'd say, franchising is like riding a bike. It's the franchisor's job to build the best bike that they can. Right. And so, you want a bike that's sturdy. You want a bike that can go fast. You want a bike that's going to last. You want a bike that's got some bells and whistles probably, but it doesn't matter how good of a bike you buy. If you, as the franchisee in this example, don't get on the bike and pedal, it's not going to go anywhere, right? If you get on the bike and you kind of half-ass pedal it, like, it's going to go, but you're probably not going to win any races. You're probably not going to be thrilled with this investment that you've made in the bike. But if you get on the right bike and you pedal your ass off, you'll go far, you'll go places, and you'll win. And that's always kind of stuck with me because I think it's a really good analogy to kind of sum up how this whole franchise thing works. But Gavin, man, I know we're kind of coming up on time here. Is there anything I didn't ask you today that I should have asked you?
That's a good question. No, I think we've had a healthy discussion. Again, I mean, I guess I look at it as it's all about the people. It's just about human trust. And, like, I've built cultures and big businesses. I've seen other businesses that haven't worked out. And it's so much about the culture and, the willingness of people coming together to execute. That's what takes someone to be successful, and so I just want to reinforce that. It's just how any business, at the core of it has to have good leadership, a good eye on culture first.
Yeah.
Because as it was, John Maxwell said, the culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like who are we? How are we going to battle together? So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And where should people go if they want to connect with you or if they want to learn more about Daisy?
Sure. Yeah. Check us out. We're all over LinkedIn as well. And then our site, daisyco.com. So DAISYCO.com, and can fill out a form, schedule a call. Happy to engage with you and see if it makes sense.
Beautiful. We'll put that in the show notes, make it easy for people to find. But Gavin Lancey with Daisy, thank you so much. I appreciate you dropping in here on the Path to Freedom podcast.
Thanks, Wes.